With Nick Dowd getting injured, Pierrick Dube gets the call up from Hershey, and we get a chance to see Aliaksei Protas at center.
Your Locked On Capitals, your daily podcast on the Washington Capitals. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Well, hello and welcome into this edition of Locked On Capitals. I'm so glad you decided to join me today. As always, this podcast is free and available on all the major platforms, including the SiriusXM app and on YouTube. And I want to thank you for making this your first listen each and every day. My name is Dan Holme. You can find me on Twitter. It's at DanCaps218. You can find the show on Twitter. It's at Locked On Caps. And the best way that you can help grow the show is to subscribe to Locked On Capitals on YouTube and comment anything down below. I would love to talk Capitals hockey with you one-on-one, and we can do that on subtext. Just check the show description for more details. So in this edition of Locked On Capitals, I talk about your thoughts on the comments that were made by Alex Ovechkin saying that he may consider retiring after his current contract. A little bit later, we will talk about how Nick Dowd gets injured and how that presents an opportunity for Pierrick Dube and also Aliaksei Protas at center. And that is where we will start the show today, is Aliaksei Protas gets his crack at the center position. And why is this a good thing? Well, it's good in a couple different reasons. Well, for one, we know that Nick Dowd is out. He's going to be missing at least the next couple of games. So he is a huge piece on the Capitals at the center position. He logs in a lot of defensive zone faceoffs, those kind of things. So they need to see what they have in the players that are on this team. Before Nick Dowd got injured, he was rumored to being traded. You know, all the insiders, Frank Saravalli, Elliot Friedman, they had speculated that Nick Dowd could potentially be on the move at the trade deadline. I guess depending on the extent of his current injury, that may change things. But before that, he was perceived to be on the move. So the Capitals would be wise to see what they have in-house, because if Dowd does get moved, well, they're going to have to address that position anyway. Why not see what the Capitals have in-house at the center position? And could Aliaksei Protas be a guy that could maybe take on that job in the event that Nick Dowd moves on? So with Dowd out for at least the next couple of games, the Caps will see what Protas brings at the center position. Now, he's not a total stranger to that position. He has played it before in small doses, but I guess we don't know exactly what he's going to bring to this team. Some people thought it could be Pierrick Dube, but he's actually a winger. So I don't think that they want to try him at the center position. Why not set him up to succeed? The Caps have called up Dube, but he's a winger, so Spencer Carberry wants to get a look at Protas. Listen, Dowd's huge on this team. That's why all these teams are giving him the full court press. He's big on even strength and the PK and logs a lot of minutes. And it's interesting, as a fourth liner, the huge role that he takes on with his team. And oftentimes, and if you're an everyday of the show, you know I talk about how we got to start losing titles. Like Darcy Kemper is our number one netminder, or Charlie Lindgren. Those are just titles or labels that we put on it. I think we have to almost look at that the same way on the different lines. He plays on the fourth line, but Nick Dowd is one of the biggest pieces on the Capitals, so it's not a disparaging thing to say that he's playing on the fourth line. So what does Carberry have in mind to fill the void when Dowd has left? Those are no easy shoes to fill. Unfortunate the circumstances, but I think it's a good thing. Carberry said his game is in a pretty good spot when it comes to playing center. We've worked a lot with him on awareness, his feet moving whenever he gets the puck, and some net front stuff. Now, playing center, I look at the puck battles, your face-offs, down low coverage. And one of the things that's been spoke about here recently is the Capitals getting to the net front. Good things happen when you converge on the opponent's net. You saw what happened with Scarbosa. You've seen the Capitals have some luck as of late scoring goals. What a novel concept, right? Well, it's worked. So I think, especially when they take on the Lightning next year, That's the same thing. Hit him with both barrels and just drive the net and look for a juicy rebound, look for an opportunity, or feed it to a guy that's off to the side and make the most of it. The Capitals are at a crunch point of the season. Let's hope they can continue with the winning formula of crashing the net. It's not too crazy of a thought. It's actually quite common. It's something that I've had in the back of my mind throughout the years. Carberry says, getting a good solid look at Protas in the middle. How does that affect the rest of the group? Number one, him taking ownership of that role and being real solid as well. Call it a fourth line center. As we know, Spencer Carberry was also the head coach of the Hershey Bears as well. Talking about Nick Dowd, though, he's a hard worker that takes a lot of defensive zone draws, and the Caps need to plan on the event, like I spoke about in the top of the segment. If Dowd goes and gets traded, who slots in? It's a good opportunity in a lot of ways that if Nick Dowd, he didn't face a major injury and say he does get traded, who is going to fill that void? Huge shoes to fill. And, I'm not so sure that the Capitals should move him at this point, especially say something happens and they take down the Lightning and say they take down the Panthers. Well, then they're in the thick of it again. That changes everything. Now, the flip side of that coin is say they fall to the Lightning and say they fall to the Panthers, then they will be circling around the drain. Protas is going to have to work very hard, and he's got his work cut out for him. Winning those puck battles is so important for a centerman. Down low in the D zone coverage, especially if you're playing in a bottom six role when you're potentially playing against Kucherov and Stamkos. He's going to bear down in those situations and win some of those 50-50s, especially in the defensive zone. And I think Protas can do it. I think that, he proved a lot of people wrong when he came into camp a couple years ago and played so well that they couldn't send him down to Hershey. I don't think there was any grand plans of having Protas on the big team a couple seasons ago, but he played so well that he made a name for himself, and everyone's looking around going, are we going to send him down to Hershey? I don't think we can really afford to do that. So just continue to keep doing what you're doing. Of course, he was rewarded with a new contract. A lot of the Capitals players were kind of ribbing him a little bit, saying, wow, the millionaire is here. So a good position for Aliaksei Protas, new contract, new opportunity. And hey, so if Protas does a really good job at the center position, you've taken care of the worry of who's going to play center. Of course, there is some outsider things as well. As we know, Kuznetsov is in the players assistance program. We don't know when he's going to come back. Nick Backstrom has stepped away from hockey indefinitely. And then you take a look down a little bit further down the depth chart that, we know that they called up Scarbosa and he's established himself. But say for some reason Protas doesn't work, they could always, take another look at Hendrix Lop here. But I think at this point, it's all hands on deck. Everyone pulling on the collective rope to see if they can get the Capitals over the hump to make a Hail Mary pass for the last wild card spot. And that's what we're hoping for. So it's not another lost season. There have been some ups. There's been some downs this season, but the Capitals are not down and out. There is still the potential there that they could end up making it to a wild card spot. It's a long shot, but I think ultimately at the end of the day, just go all in and see what you have in the tank. All right, so coming up here after the break, we will talk about how Nick Dowd getting injured presents an opportunity for one of the best goal scorers in the AHL, Pierrick Dube. What does that mean for him? I'll discuss coming up. Grocery bills are so expensive these days, but now they don't have to be. Start getting cash back on the grocery shopping with the free Ibotta app and get cash back every time you shop. Do you love making money but also love spending money? Don't we all? Now you can make money while you spend it every time you shop with Ibotta. Spring break is around the corner, which means you're going to be shopping, but don't shop for your big trip and get nothing in return. Make sure you're getting cash back every time you shop with Ibotta. Ibotta is the free app that gives you the most cash back every time you shop on hundreds of items, from groceries to beauty supplies to toys, so you can make sure you're beating inflation no matter what you're purchasing. Right now, Ibotta is offering our listeners $5 just for trying Ibotta by using the code LOCKEDONNHL when you register. Just go to the App Store or or Google Play Store and download the free Ibotta app to start earning cash back and use code Locked On NHL. That's IBOTTA in the Google Play or App Store and use code Locked On NHL. Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube, and now it's also available on Amazon Fire TV and the free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today, now available on the free Fire TV channels app. All right, welcome back into this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So a great opportunity. And one of the things I've spoke of on the show is that earlier in the season, and as for a lion's share of the season, the Capitals have struggled in scoring goals. They've struggled 5-on-5 at times on the power play. They've been playing better as of late, but still they need more goal scoring to get them over the top. So what did the Capitals do? They called up Pierrick Dube, who is one of the best goal scorers in the AHL. Will that translate to the Capitals? I guess we will see tonight if he's in the lineup versus the Lightning or against the Panthers, because one of the things that we know for sure is that Nick Dowd is going to miss at least the next couple of games. Why not see what you have in the tank in a guy that really knows how to light it up for the Hershey Bears? The Capitals will get that opportunity to see Pierrick Dube under the big lights with Nick Dowd missing the next couple of games at least. The Caps signed Dube to an entry-level deal in July after spending last season in the Canadiens organization. So he is a young man, and one of the things that's been said about him is that his size, he's not the biggest guy, but he knows how to score goals on the regular, except as of late. Dube is one of the best goal scorers in the AHL with 24 goals. Can that translate to the Capitals in the NHL? It is an exciting thing to think about. The Caps seem to be heating up, so it'll be interesting to see what Dube can do against NHL talent. He's a young guy in the league, and I know that he is lighting it up for the Hershey Bears, but will that translate to the NHL? Will that translate to the Capitals? I guess we will see. So why Pierrick Dube and why now? He's been fairly silent as of late, going 4 consecutive games without a goal. And I don't think I would read too much into that. I mean, things ebb and flow. Players go through hot streaks. They dip, they dive a little bit. But if you take a look at his season in total thus far, it's been most impressive. Why not see what you have in the tank before we make it to the trade deadline and Brian McClellan does something crazy and trades a player out and we get a return that's kind of a not that big of a return, when you potentially could have that raw, untapped talent down in the Hershey organization, within the Capitals organization. It only makes sense to me. Another guy that I think is deserving of an opportunity somewhere here in the near future is Ethan Frank, the fastest skater in the AHL, and even a faster skater than Connor McDavid. Can you believe it? This team is dubbed as being old and slow. Could you imagine what that would mean if they had a player like Ethan Frank? Quite a thing. So excitement abounds. I'm excited to see what Dube has under the big lights and against some formidable opponents. Make no mistake, the Lightning, the Panthers, those are not going to be easy outs. Pierrick Dube is going to have to bring it, but this is his opportunity to shine, to say, hey, you guys don't need to go outside of the organization. You have the talent you need right here. Coach, I'm here. Put me in. But he's got to shine. He's got to make the most of his opportunities. And you take a look throughout the Hershey organization, there's a lot of guys that are just itching for the opportunity. Joe Snively, we've seen him before. And like I talked about, Scarbosa got his opportunity. Now Pierrick Dube, and add Ethan Frank into that mix of players that could maybe crack the roster at some point this season. Listen, the Hershey Bears are absolutely killing it. We know that last season they won the Calder Cup, and they're well on their way to doing that this year as well. So that means the players down there are very good. That means the coaching is very good down there. Why not give some of these players an opportunity? So for me, I'm all in on seeing Pierrick Dube. Again, if you listen or watch to this show on a regular basis, you know how I've talked about I want to see Dube, I want to see Scarbosa, and I want to see Ethan Frank. Well, a couple of those players are going to get a chance to prove their worth within the organization. Film wise, a little bit just from tuning into a few games, Carberry said, seen some highlights and obviously have talked to Todd Nelson quite a bit about him. He's having a fantastic year. So why not see what he has in the tank, And if it, say, for some reason it doesn't translate, say he just, falls totally flat on his face, he can go back down to Hershey, can rework on his game, recalibrate his head and get back to where he needs to be and get another opportunity. But I don't want to take the negative road. I mean, he could potentially be the guy. And wouldn't that be something? I don't think that anyone thought that Scarbosa was going to be doing such a good job that he is doing, but he is doing it. He is getting it done. And that's why he is on the ice, not watching the game from up on high in the fancy clothes, eating popcorn. He's, pulling his weight. And one of the things that Scarbosa had said is that he put in the extra work in the offseason. He put the extra work in the gym to just be prepared for his moment to shine. He knew he was just looking for the bat signal to go up saying, Scarbosa, we need you in Washington. And he made the most of it. Kill it when you make the most of it. Don't get so caught up that, oh, man, I'm playing the NHL. You've got to prove it if you want to put on one of these sweaters on a night in and night out basis. If you take a look at the talent out there, you are playing against some truly premier talent. And it's going to be on showcase against the Lightning. For right now, as I record this at 10:40 a.m. local, I don't know if he's going to be in the lineup. I'd imagine that he would be. I don't know who's going to slot in and how that goes. But it is an exciting thing as a Capitals fan to see what we have in the tank with a lot of this young talent. Capitals fans, this is going to be must-see TV. You're going to want to watch the game tonight and the next one against the Panthers as well. So you're going to be able to see if Pierrick Dube is as good in the NHL as he has been in the AHL. All right, so coming up here after the break, I spoke about the story that broke in Sports Express, the Russian media source, talking about that Alex Ovechkin is considering retiring after his current contract expires. Well, there has been a lot of thoughts from the fans that watch and listen to this show, and I will talk about some of those comments coming up. We're driven for the search for better, but when it comes to hiring, the best way to search for a candidate isn't to search at all. Don't search, match with Indeed. If you need to hire, you need Indeed. Indeed is your match and hiring platform with over 350 million global monthly visitors, according to Indeed data, and a matching engine that helps you find quality candidates fast. Ditch the busy work. Use Indeed for scheduling, screening, and messaging so you can connect with candidates faster. And Indeed doesn't just help you hire faster. 93% of employers agree Indeed delivers the highest quality matches compared to other job sites, according to recent Indeed surveys. So if you are in the business of HR, don't wade through paper applications. What year is it anyway? It's 2024. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/lockedon. Just go to Indeed.com/lockedon right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on the Locked On Capitals podcast. Indeed.com/lockedon. Terms and conditions apply. You need to hire? You need Indeed. All right, welcome back into this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So Alex Ovechkin made the comments here somewhat recently, or it was put in Sports Express somewhat recently, and RMNB ran the story as well, talking about that Alex Ovechkin, the grade 8, might hang up the skates at the end of his contract, even if he doesn't catch Wayne Gretzky, the great one. Is that possible? Is that hyperbole? Is that Alex Ovechkin just wanting to live in the moment and not have to deal with the questions every day until he retires of, are you going to retire? Are you going to retire? Let me ask you about if you're going to retire. I think that at least in part that is the case. I think that there is the possibility that he hangs up the skates at the end of his current contract because, like I've spoke of, hockey means a lot to him, but does it mean as much to him as we think it does? Take a look at him. He's 38 years old, and things don't get any easier with time. Listen, Alex Ovechkin has turned on the Jets later in the season, proving everyone, including myself, wrong that he still has more fuel in the tank. But it's still a far cry from a 40 or 50 goal season. You see that diminished returns in a lot of different players, Sidney Crosby as well. Those players are getting older and they're not going to have as much skip in their step, shall we say, that they used to. So is it crazy talk to think that Alex Ovechkin will hang up the skates at the end of his current contract? Well, I posted a piece on Twitter, X, if you will, and asking everyone, the fans of this show who listen and watch, what your thoughts were on Alex Ovechkin's comments. Do you think he will really retire when he hangs it up or at the end of his current contract, or do you think that he will sign an extension if he is close to catching Wayne Gretzky? Here is one comment.
Hey Dan, this is Pipe 720. So Alex Ovechkin retiring. It's sad to see it's the end of an era, but I think it's time. I was lucky enough to see him practice with his son, and those were great moments. I don't think he wants to miss out on being a husband and a father. Not that he is now, but he could really get some of that time back. As for the record, even though it seems a little bit more in grasp, after going on a bit of a hot streak, it still would take a while. I mean, even if he gets close towards the end of his contract, it's more or less an arbitrary thing. What matters are cups. And as for the team, it needs a rebuild. I mean, I wonder if he is thinking if it's time to step aside and let some of the newer players step up. And aside from family, that might be the biggest reason to retire after his contract's over. I mean, no one's saying that, hey, we really need him to stick around to go on this Stanley Cup run. To me, that's the only reason to keep him on after his contract. Thanks for your hard work. Love the podcast. Pipe out.
So that was one comment there, hearing from the people that listen and watch this show on Alex Ovechkin. If, in fact, he will decide to hang up the skates at the end of his current contract. Is it crazy to think about? I'm not so sure that it is. So let's go to a couple other comments here on YouTube. Did a good job for this franchise when he came. The team was in no man land, but he put up the team on the map with a cup, with a win in 18 and the winning season, writes the great Baden 8033. Javier Ronaldo 0 says, not really surprised. I'm not totally sure he cares as much about the goal record as he used to after his dad passed away. A tough moment for him, to be sure, having his dad pass away, as it is for everyone. He was a key piece in his life. And, he saw a lot of hockey with his dad. So I understand where the comment is coming from there. Eric Dberg 1161 says, it is heartbreaking when your favorite player retires. I am 52. Wayne Gretzky was my favorite player for 15 years, and I followed his entire career. When he retired in 99, I had been following him day to day for over a decade and never thought it would be possible. I'd love a player as much. I love Ovi more, which is truly wild and wonderful. I believe he gets 905 or more on the current contract. So many people have said they will retire in return. Who knows regarding Ovechkin? He has to retire at some point, but let's hope he keeps going. And I think that is the hope, that he keeps going. Kristen H82 says, all I know is the last game will require 10 boxes of tissues, a stiff drink or 4, and a few days off of work to mourn loss, celebrate our man. So that's the thing there. I mean, he is a big piece on the Capitals. We know that. He is the captain of the team. We know what he brings to this team. And ultimately, will he do that? Will he retire at the end of his current contract? Here's the thing. Say he's 10 goals short. Say he's 5 goals short. Would he still hang it up and say, well, I got close? It seems like a crazy concept to think he put in that much work in his entire career to just say, well, I got as close as I could possibly get. So it is an interesting thing to see if, in fact, he would do something like that. If you're asking me right now, I think that to a certain extent, he made those comments to Sports Express saying that he would retire at the end of his current contract. Like I said, off the top of the segment, because he does not want to listen to that question every year, after every game, how long are you going to play? I think that, much like the same way when he was chasing down Gretzky, and people were asking him, what's more important, Gretzky or the Capitals? He said, the Capitals winning a Stanley Cup is more important to me than catching Gretzky. So to a certain extent, I think that is what's behind his comments. Is he is a guy that lives in the moment. I don't think he's the kind of guy that, looks, 3-4 years down the line or 2 years down the line, whatever the case may be. I think that he lives in the moment that he's in right now. I don't think that he's too concentrated about what he's going to do in 2 years. I think he's more concentrated on getting more goals this season because he was off to a slower start. And I also think that he is, hell-bent on wanting to get the Capitals to the playoffs and make a push. Listen, and in 2018, I don't think there was a lot of people that thought the Capitals were going to make it to the Stanley Cup. Am I saying I think they're going to make it this year? Listen, just like Bruce Boudreau said, don't look that far in advance. As players play week to week and go game to game, don't say, hey, we got this many games in front of us before the end of the season. Let's just concentrate on winning against the Lightning and then against the Panthers and take it from there. Don't worry about who you're going to be playing in the first round of the playoffs. Otherwise, you probably won't make it to the playoffs, period. But the one thing I'm going to say is the Capitals have been playing much better as of late. I wouldn't count them out. It'll be an interesting thing to see what they're going to do with Protas at center and potentially Dube in the lineup tonight against the Lightning and also against the Panthers. Two good teams that it's a good measuring stick for this team. If they can pick up a win or two and pick up 4 points, wouldn't that be something? That would be steps in the right direction for them making a push for the playoffs. All right. Once again, I want to thank you for joining me on this edition of Locked On Capitals, your only daily year-round podcast covering the Washington Capitals. And I want to thank all of you that listen on the audio side and watch this on YouTube. You are what makes this show successful. When you're done here, head on over to Locked On's streaming channel. Find Locked On Sports Today, now available on the free Fire TV Channels app. Check it out today. All right. Once again, I want to thank you for joining me on this edition of Locked On Capitals, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Dan Holme, and I'll talk to you again next time.